So the lack of Wall Street regulation is strengthening Putin's regime and putting money into the pockets of Russian oligarchs. And this is an article from the Daily Poster by David Serrata and Julia Rock titled Biden's Ukraine plans face Wall Street roadblock. Let's get into this. Corporate lobbyists thwarted measures that could strengthen sanctions against Putin's regime, and they were lobbying as the threat of war intensified. In response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, President Biden is expected to soon announce more sanctions aimed at Vladimir Putin and his care of oligarchs. The theory is that unlike sectoral sanctions that could harm the broader Russian population, inflicting financial pain on Putin and his wealthy cronies could force the Russian government to the negotiating table. So that is the plan right now, to inflict sanctions financially on Russia, specifically the oligarchs, Putin's pals, and force them to negotiate because they don't have any money left. But while such a move might help deter further Russian incursions, Biden faces a significant obstacle: corporate lobbyists' success in shrouding the American finance industry in secrecy, which makes it far easier for Russian oligarchs and their business empires to evade economic sanctions. The situation spotlights how America's money-drenched political process can create national security challenges. In effect, Wall Street's overwhelming power to shape U.S. regulatory policy, fueled by massive campaign contributions and an army of lobbyists, may defang some of the White House's most potent economic weapons against an international adversary. So basically, this is what's going on. Much of Russia's top 1%, the oligarchs, Putin's pals, the people that have the most money, the most power, they often buy assets outside of Russia. And the two most popular countries for this are the United States and the UK, because this is where the regulations and the sanctions, the financial sanctions, are notoriously opaque, that you can start shell companies in the United States and the UK without it being clear who is in charge of these assets. So you can, in effect, anonymously buy assets outside of Russia or outside whatever country you're in, and you can buy them and hold them in the United States, and no one really knows who it is. So when Biden imposes these financial sanctions, and he's trying to cut off people in Russia from their money by restricting banks, restricting trade, the people it's most likely going to hit are the poor and the middle class, because the wealthiest people in Russia, the top 1%, own a large portion of their assets outside of Russia, and it's also anonymous because their name isn't directly tied to it. These oligarchs are starting companies. These companies are based in the United States and the UK. Their names are not behind it, so it's these kind of blurry shell companies with money going in and out of it. And the sanctions that Biden is imposing will not be able to hit these companies. So a lot of the wealth of Russian oligarchs, the top 1% of Russia, will not be affected by these sanctions. The article goes on to say that huge volumes of Russia's dark money are being held in the West. Traditionally, Russian dark money goes through several offshore havens in its laundering, but it predominantly stops in anonymous companies in two major economies that allow anonymous ownership: the United States and the United Kingdom. So, again, these financial restrictions that Biden is imposing on Russia, and that many world leaders are imposing on Russia, it's probably not going to do shit for the top 1%. Or if it does, it won't be nearly as big of an effect on the top 1% of Russia as it is for the average Joe, the average Vlad in Russia. It's because most people, the average middle class person is not invested in these offshore assets. A lot of the powerful people in Russia are. And again, you can anonymously own assets in countries like the United States and the UK without declaring them under your actual name. So there's no way for the administration to go, okay, Vladimir Putin, these are your assets offshore. We're going to restrict your assets somehow because Putin's name and other people's names are not directly tied to the things that they own. And it's not just Russian oligarchs that do that. It's a lot of rich people that do this. But right now, with the Russia-Ukraine crisis, we're trying to take away the financial arms of the most powerful people in Russia in order to force them to the negotiating table, in order to stop this crisis, in order to stop the deaths of thousands of people unnecessarily dying because of this unwarranted invasion of Ukraine. And this is something that came to mind when I was reading the article. So a lot of these sanctions, a lot of times when I hear sanctions, and not just in this case, but in whatever case, whatever financial case it is, whether it's Wall Street or restricting investments in Russia, taking away Russian wealth, whether it's political donations, political campaigns, sanctions equal optics. When something is sanctioned, it's often optics to make you think that things are being restricted. That's whenever I hear the word sanctions now, whenever I hear things are being restricted, I know that they're not actually being restricted for the people who need it restricted, for the people in power that this law, this regulation is being passed to effect in the public's eyes. These sanctions are, basically those little thumb sucker things that you give to babies, the pacifiers. The sanctions are pacifiers for babies, so that when a baby's crying, when the public's outraged, you put a pacifier in its mouth and it shuts the fuck up and it goes to sleep and it's like, okay, problem solved. But the thing is, these sanctions are not solving problems for the people that actually need more regulation, because often there are loopholes that even a decent lawyer will be able to get around. And of course, if you're wealthy, if you have billions of dollars, if you're in that class, if you're truly in the top 1%, and things are a financial free-for-all, you have all the lawyers you want at your disposal. Money also trumps transparency. So when the check reaches a certain amount, people don't care where the check comes from. When you're dealing with hundreds, when you're dealing with thousands of dollars, maybe even you're dealing with millions of dollars, when the checks start to clear in the hundreds of millions, billions, people don't want information. And by the way, I'm not outside of this temptation. If someone came to me for the Auxoro podcast and said, I'm going to give you $1,000 for a sponsorship, and every episode we'll give you $1,000 check, and this is the company that does it, and I look into it and it seems dark, it's pretty shady, it's some company that says that they deal in supplements, but when I search them, a lot of articles come up that deal with trafficking drugs, and the supplement company is a front for hiding cocaine in bottles and shipping them across the U.S. and pack mules and human mules, and asking people to shove pills of resveratrol up their butt and get to the other side and sell them to white guys like me in America. That is their market for cocaine. And if it was $1,000, I would say, this is shady. This, even though it would be a significant amount of money to me, getting $1,000 for every episode for a sponsorship, it wouldn't be enough for me to say, okay, wherever this money comes from, I don't give a fuck. I would not be enough for that. Now, if someone offered me $1 million for an episode and said, hey, we love the Auxoro podcast, 10 years down the line, maybe I hope this would be amazing. This show's getting 15 million downloads an episode, and someone comes up to me and says, hey, same company, hey, we'll give you $1 million to sponsor our supplement company. It is called Buzzed. It's pre-workout that gets you buzzed. But little do I know, I do some research and I find that there are other things in the supplement that are buzzing you, and the things that they're doing is not so legal, and the operation is shady. Maybe I go through 2 articles and I stop myself from reading after the headline because I don't want to be liable, or I don't want to know where this money is coming from, because it's $1 million fucking an episode. And I feel like that's what happens a lot of times with these super rich people, with the uber elite, the wealthy class, is that when you have these absurd amounts of money being thrown around and invested in anonymous assets, it's not that people can't find out who it's coming from or where it's coming from. Of course, you know, because someone has to open the account. Even if it's not the Russian oligarch himself that's opening the account and investing in it, it's someone connected to it. You could probably guess if you're on the phone with Vladimir Korsakov and there are missiles going off in the background, and you know, not that he would be in the actual war zone, but you can put things together, is what I'm saying. There are clues. You know, if a guy from Russia is sending you $30 million and saying, start this company for me, and it's going in and out and funneling out of Russian names, you can put things together in a sort of pattern where you'll make an educated guess on who this money is really going to. So it's not that you can't find out if you're a financial advisor, you're helping someone set up a company. It's that you don't want to, because it's so much fucking money that it's not in your best interest to know where this money is coming from. Because if you find out that this money is dark, that it's illegal, that it's coming from fucked up shit, that makes you even more liable, and the legal penalties will be even more severe if you were knowingly funneling dark money into a United States shell company, and then your whole company will be associated with it. And it's, when you're dealing with money in that amount, it's actually not in your best interest to know. And I don't pretend like I'm not tempted by that either. If someone came to me with $1 million check and said, by the way, we want to sponsor your podcast and this is what we do, I would cut them off. I don't give a shit. Just send me the check. I will sponsor whatever the fuck you want, within reason. If it's a supplement company, sure. I don't have to know, but if they're like, yeah, our company helps transport people across the border, and we provide services to our older clients, I'd be like, you mean child sex trafficking? And they're like, well, technically, we actually like to call it child transference. I'd be like, okay, this I'm gonna call the police. But if someone came to me with a supplement company and said, here's $1 million, I would say, I don't need to know anything else. Just send me the ad read. I'll fucking jerk off while I'm doing it with supplement tanks in the background, and I'll hire, Bradley Martin to work out, and we'll put this whole entire ad together, and we'll make it just a fantastic ad read where we are putting together something great for both of us, myself and the supplement company. There's also something else that came to mind when I was reading the article. It's that we could actually see elite Russians get richer because of these sanctions. We could actually see people in Russia that are already filthy fucking rich get even more rich because of the financial sanctions, which seems counterintuitive. You might be saying, okay, we're putting these sanctions on Russia. How could this possibly make Russian billionaires even richer? Here's the thing. And we've already seen examples of this. When there are financial restrictions or financial things that are raging within a country, when most of the country is being severely financially restricted, whether it's for a pandemic, or because you're inflicting these restrictions because of an invasion. We've seen already in the cases of a pandemic, when the poor, middle class, when the average person's suffering, the billionaires continue to become richer. We've already seen examples of that. With the invasion in particular, we could actually see the elite Russians get richer because of these sanctions, and here's how. So one of the biggest ways that war makes money is logistics and reconstruction. So these uber wealthy upper class Russians, billions of dollars, they likely have positions in companies, whether they took them recently or they've already had these positions. Elite Russians likely have positions in companies that will help reconstruct Ukraine infrastructure, like oil, like real estate, consumer goods. They're probably invested in these type of assets already. And the one thing that war does is it ramps up these types of things, like oil, like real estate, consumer goods. These are all part of logistics and reconstructing a country that becomes damaged and is under fire. So if you have $1 billion and you invested millions of dollars in companies that work in these kinds of things, like make buildings, they help rebuild, you are actually profiting off of the war as an elite Russian, as a rich Russian guy or gal. And the sanctions won't do shit. You'll be able to. We're intending to take away money from these elite Russians, and ironically, the sanctions may actually make them even richer, because middle lower class people are not taking these types of positions. And so you'll have, I imagine that, there's no way to tell the future, but I imagine there will be kind of a pandemic situation where you have the average person suffering in America, but the rich people are getting richer. I think you'll have a similar situation in Russia if things continue to pan out, that these elite Russians have taken positions in companies that are going to be essential in reconstructing Ukraine and parts of Russia that become damaged. And while the average person is suffering immensely, death, disease, injuries in this Russia-Ukraine invasion, they will be profiting off of the rebuilding of Ukraine because they've taken positions in these assets, which, it's par for the course, basically, with what's happened the past couple of years. So speaking of Russian billionaires, and speaking of billionaires in general, which, by the way, I just want to say, I don't hate billionaires. I don't hate rich people. I came from a family, and I have two parents that started a business when I was very young, and now they are well off, and I've benefited from that, and I don't hold any ill will towards rich people. I'm simply pointing out that it's these people, whether they're rich in America or Russia, are taking advantage of legal regulations. They can legally be invested in ways like this anonymously and take these positions and skirt sanctions consistently because our regulations allow for it. And honestly, I would do the same fucking thing if I had a shit ton of money and I could legally make more of it and I can legally hide my identity. Why wouldn't I take advantage of it? So I'm not blaming the people with the money because they are putting their energy into a legal outlet, whether it's moral or not. I'm not making a comment on the moral obligations. I'm saying it is illegal, and our regulations currently allow for it, and it's because other people in the U.S. benefit from it. Again, they don't want to know where the fucking money comes from because they're making so much money off of it that they're like, yeah, we don't need to know. Just anonymous. We don't need to know who's in charge of this company. Just give us your money. And so if we want something to change, the people that are making these regulations, the people in power, the administration, has to be willing to put their foot down to the types of people and the types of industries that set up these shell companies and say, hey, we need some more fucking regulation. At least let's get a name on this company so we know where it's coming from. But until that happens, this type of shit's going to keep on happening. So again, it's par for the course. Hey guys, this is a quick reminder to check out Auxoro Premium, the best deal in premium podcasting. On Auxoro Premium, you gain access to bonus episodes, the unlicensed therapy series, the ability to submit topic suggestions for the podcast, exclusive Ask Me Anything episodes, and the entire premium catalog for only $5 per month. Go to auxoro.supercast.com, that's AUXORO.supercast.com, to join the premium gang today.